So I guess as a sports radio host, if you were to have Rodgers on, um, whether it was this past season or next season, what is the mindset that you would take when interviewing him? Is it
Oh,
here's an open mic, do with it what you will? Is it
no, but I'd ask him football questions. I'm curious to know, like, a lot of things about, when he knew he wasn't going to be ready to come back this year, and actually, it would be about the coming year and the way he's viewing everything, and then ask him about his thoughts on the Super Bowl. Turn him into a pundit. That would be my approach. But I think he and I have had just brief conversations off the air. Last time I saw him was a couple of years ago. And so, I think he heard my opinions of when he said he was inoculated, and
yeah.
those days are so long gone and so dead and buried that, I'm happy to have him on anytime. Let's talk football and let's talk about his career and where he sees it going from here. He is the quarterback of the team that makes me the happiest in professional football. So I'd love to have him on.
So I guess part of it though is like all those headlines that he makes that are non-football related,
Mm-hmm.
they don't all necessarily stem from a question that Pat asked him. I think he
Well, I mean,
tends to kind of take it in a different direction. So do
right.
you as a host then try to redirect it? Do you
Oh,
try to just almost ignore it when he's saying it?
no, I made a rule a long time ago before I even had this job here that that if somebody says something on the air that is something you potentially don't believe in personally, or is something that somebody in your listening audience may need clarification on, or some form of that somebody in your listening audience or viewing audience might take offense to, then if you're silent, then you own it, right? Then that's the way I've approached it.
Yeah.
So with anything, honestly, the number of times that I used to do, and this is completely different. In terms of subject matter, but I used to be, doing the draft with Mike Mayock quite a bit, and for a long time. And Mike would just come right in my kitchen with a lot of, pushback on what I'm opining on, and sometimes I would stray into the lane of analysis and, on players, or I'd stray into the lane of evaluations, right? Like in his lane. And, he would kind of elbow me out of that lane, and he'd give me a broadside, he'd give me an aside, and I would watch it back. And I'm like, I didn't say anything. So, and I know deep down I was like wanting to push back on him, but my style of broadcasting isn't, you know, back and forth that might be construed as argument. That's just not my DNA. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'll have a debate, I'll push back, right? But anything that might be construed as awkward or rubbernecking because that's controversial, I'm not going to gravitate towards that. I just won't. So my initial and early parts of my broadcasting is I wouldn't say anything and I'd let it go. But then I realized that if I'm not pushing back or I'm silent, that means I'm now owning it. So yeah, I mean, if anybody comes on the show, and again, I know you keep bringing up Rodgers as the name because, again, his platform is monstrously large because he's on ESPN and McAfee show, which is, again, I used to be on the ESPN platform for the first 7 years of my career. I just know how huge it is. So him being on ESPN Air with a huge listening and viewing audience through Pat's remarkable success and rabid audience as well, that's what you're gravitating towards. But it would just be anybody. If anybody comes on here and says something that I might not agree with personally, or think that somebody in the audience would require me to say, hey, how come you don't see my point of view by saying something in the moment to, I guess the phrase would be push back or offer a different point of view. If I don't say anything, then it's tacitly communicating that I agree.